Dear students of class 8A and 8B, welcome to my history and civics class. Today, last few points are left to be explained. Now I have decided to explain these points. First point, nature of revolt. Which revolt? The revolt of 57. Why was it started? It was started to protest against the system of introduction of a new cartridge named a new cartridge for a new rifle, Enfield. This rifle was known as Enfield rifle, whose cartridges were made of fat of pig and cow. But both the two communities, the Hindus and Muslims, combinedly rejected to use the cartridges of the Enfield rifle. Why? Because of that reason. A rumor was there that the paper of the cartridges of Enfield rifle was made of fats of cows and pigs. Naturally, they refused to use it because they considered it to be a direct attempt in their religious customs and practices. That's why they refused to use the cartridges. Now, another important factor which also led to the growth of that movement was, wrong British policies. Almost all sections of the people of India, they were dissatisfied with the wrong policies of the British. The British never thought that the Indian people might start agitation against them. It was the first time the Indian people got themselves united against the injustice policies of the British, and hence they all were determined to overthrow the British rule from our country, India. And they all had eagerness to have freedom, liberty of a free country. Their country was not a country should be under the British rule for long years. So they must come out of the British control and must establish and must make their country free from British control, and must make it a free country. That's why almost all sections of people of our country, they came forward, they strongly joined, but not large in numbers, very less in numbers. That was the most important drawback of that revolt of 1857. The revolt of 1857 was suppressed by the British. And next point, the First War of Independence. According to some English historians, the revolt of 1857 was not a revolt but a mutiny of the Sepoys. Why? Because the Sepoys were given a new cartridge to use in a rifle named Enfield rifle, but they refused to use it. It was nothing but some technical reason. It was nothing but some religious cause of religious practices of the Indian people. That's why they just protested it and they started agitation against them. Why? Because they wanted to make it changed. That the cartridges of Enfield rifle introduced by the British, the Sepoys did not want to use it. They refused to use it, and they demanded that a new cartridge should be given to them for using. But the British did not want to change it because they spent a lot of money in making such cartridges. That's why they forcefully made them agree to use the cartridges of Enfield rifle. So the Sepoys of India who are paid their wages, money by the British, they are bound to accept their instruction according to them. That's why some British historians narrated it as a mutiny, but not revolt, but a mutiny. But Indian historians strongly, refuted their arguments, and instead of refuted their arguments by clarifying it that it was not a mutiny, but really out and out a revolt of the Indian Sepoys. In that revolt, the Indian Sepoys not only started their, started their voice raising against the British rule, but other people of India. Now, why is that? Because other people of India also were oppressed by the British, and that the Sepoys started agitation, started revolt against the British was true, but Indian people also encouraged them by joining the revolt. So it was not a mutiny, but it was a revolt against the British government. Earlier the British government never thought that Indian people might raise their voice against their rule. They might criticize them. They had been ruling the country without caring Indians to be the citizens of that country, India, but they considered themselves to be inferior and small creatures at the hands of them. But ultimately, the Indians proved themselves to be very straightforward in their dealings. That's why ultimately the Britishers were forced to change their policies before the suppression of the revolt of 1857. The British the British did not agree to provide any extra benefits to the Indians, even the Sepoys. But after the suppression of the revolt of 1857, the British government took many initiatives, passed laws in the British Parliament by shifting the power of the East India Company to the British Crown, and Queen Victoria became the ruler of India directly from England. And as a result of it, there came certain changes in the system of governance. The government also passed many popular laws, popular acts for the satisfaction of Indian people. At the same time, the demands which were made by the Indian people, to some extent, they took some of their demands and accepted some of their demands, and the rule of East India Company came to an end, and the rule of British Crown started. Viceroy became the new Governor General, and the post of Governor General was abolished, and Lord Canning, who came to India as the last Governor General of India, became the first Viceroy of India, and he also was asked to establish friendly relationship with the Indian people and the British. Since Lord Canning, directly insulted Bahadur Shah Zafar, Lord Canning also witnessed the repressive measures taken by the British against the Indians when he reached here as the Governor General of India. But at the same time, he also witnessed the suppression of the revolt of 1857. He also witnessed, he also witnessed the shifting of power from the East India Company to the British Crown. So he remained here and witnessed a historical change in India, and that's why what he was instructed by the British Crown, he tried his level best to realize it, so that Indians must not become an opponent of the British and must become loyal to the British, and British could administer the country peacefully, happily, by gaining the faiths of the Indian people. And by this way, the Indians, it was a great achievement of Indians. Although the revolt of 1857 was suppressed by the British, but it was also a great achievement of the Indian sepoys and the Indian people that the British did something in favor of the Indians. They shifted the power to the British Crown from East India Company. They abolished the previous, post, Governor General, and they also created a new post, Viceroy. And apart from this, Lord Canning was asked to adopt, good policies for the all-round development of the Indian people and this country, India. Besides, the people who never thought that the British would accept their demands, they witnessed that the British accepted almost all demands of the Indian people after the suppression of the revolt of 1857, except those people whose properties were confiscated. It was not given back to them since they were directly involved in killing so many British officials. And the two communities, the Hindus and the Muslims, their unity, which also had become a great factor for the revolt of 1857. The British this time became very much conscious of it and adopted a policy of divide and rule for the two communities, so that both of the two communities, the Hindus and Muslims, must not become a factor for them and must not get themselves united against the British rule. And ultimately, the desire for freedom from the British of the Indians for the first time tested it. They realized it. The revolt against the Britishers would be the only way, would be the only solution by which in the long run they would be able to make their country free from British control. Besides, people who joined the revolt had different motives behind their participation, but they all opposed the British and were determined to overthrow the British rule from our country, India. British Parliament and the Queen of Britain also accepted the responsibility of India by, bringing it under the direct rule of the British. So, the struggle of the Indian people continued against the British as soon as they were given so many chances. They realized that only agitation, only through a revolt, they would be able to reach their goal and would be able to make their country a free country. And the British also stopped framing wrong policies and favored the Indians to consider them to be not their enemies but their friends. That's why the British adopted good policies for the Indian people. But one thing they changed, that was they appointed so many British soldiers in their army instead of Indians. Since the Indians gave them trouble because of their religious sentiment, because of their desire, strong determination, firm determination and strong will, the British witnessed it. That's why instead of appointing Indians in their army, a number of Britishers were appointed as the Sipais in British army. But at the same time, they also considered the matter of unequal treatment of both the two Sipais, Indians and Europeans. Both the two Sipais where it was decided that Sipais of Europe and India would be treated equally, but still there was no equal treatment for Indians and Europeans or Britishers. The Britishers were given preference, better preference than Indians. That's why during the agitation and movement under Indian nationalist leader, when the Indian National Congress was established, the leaders strongly criticized these policies of exploitation, this policy of exploitation of the Indians, and hence Indian national movement became very much powerful, and they utilize it as their weapon against the British government up to this. Thank you, my dear students.